Just sticking with Travis, what do you see with him at the next level?
I think he's as rare and generational as maybe Calvin Johnson, Myles Garrett, and Travis Hunter. Like, that's the list of guys that have a 10.0 on our scale, and I think that's an on and off the field dynamic as well too. So Travis was always going to be, I think he should be still in consideration of the first overall pick, despite how talented Cam Moore and Shedeur Sanders are.
Welcome in. It is the Tuesday, April 8 edition of the NFL Spotlight Show. I am your host, Ari Meirov. It is a Tuesday, which means we have a special Spotlight guest of the week. We're in the month of April. It is full draft season. So we are going with a draft guest here today. And joining us on the show today, we have the director of the Shrine Bowl, Eric Galko. Eric has been one of the top voices whenever it comes to the college all-star games. The Shrine Bowl has become crazy successful here over the last couple of years thanks to his leadership. He just signed a new extension there. And on Friday, he was at the Colorado Pro Day with Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter, and Shedeur and his family. They were all at the Shrine Bowl back in January. He knows Shedeur and the family and everything inside and out. So we had a whole discussion about that, about his career as well. And we will talk about some other things happening here around the NFL on the back end of the show. But here is my full 30-plus minute discussion with Eric Galko. He is the director of the Shrine Bowl for the last 4 years, just got a well-deserved extension as well. It is Eric Galko. Eric, how are you doing here? A little bit over 2 weeks until the NFL draft.
I'm doing great, man. It's been a great ride, and the benefit for the Shrine Bowl is that all my stress is up until late January, and then after that, I become a pseudo agent or cheerleader for a lot of these guys until draft weekend too. So it's fun, it's stressful, and excited for the next 3 weeks.
Well, it's obviously getting closer and closer, and you were just now at Boulder, Colorado for the showcase, not the pro day, the showcase for all the Colorado players, headlined by Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter. I also want to talk a little bit about you here later in the show, because your rise, what you do, your voice in the NFL, it's a big one. I don't think most average fans fully know exactly who you are and how you've come up to this point and how big the Shrine Bowl is and how big it is getting every single year. So we'll talk about that here on the back end of the show. But I do want to start with the buzz right now with the NFL draft and this showcase that happened on Friday. You were there on the sidelines. You, of course, had Shedeur and a bunch of other Colorado players over at the Shrine Bowl in January. Let me just start with this. What did you see with Shedeur at that showcase on Friday? What was the buzz on the sideline with him? What did you think about the entire day overall?
I think, certainly the Browns and the Giants had at least 12 people each there, including ownership and GM. So I think they've probably seen enough of him to really know what he's all about. But I've got a chance to do that as well, too. But having other scouts or media just see how calm he is as a leader, how confident he is going through the showcase, the workout, the throwing session, whatever you want to call it, and just seeing how he's able to talk to his receivers, right? This is a high-stress moment. This is on NFL Network. He's throwing for the first time since late December. He had two teams picking 2 and 3 who both like him, both there in person. And the confidence he kind of displays, the ability to kind of talk with receivers, to joke around, to take a break and take it seriously, but also make sure it's not too big of a moment. I hope that a lot of people saw that who he is as a player and a person the last 4 years is who he'll be in the NFL as well, too. I think that really shown a lot. Certainly the deep ball was impressive. The ability to move outside the pocket, he did a lot of that work as well with one of his strengths. But I think overall, just the aura of him and seeing that, man, it's hard to imagine this guy not being comfortable in the NFL no matter what they're throwing at him. I think it was the biggest takeaway for most NFL scouts there.
All right, there's a lot of these narratives that have been building around him really since February before the combine, people trying to say the top 5 pick shouldn't go in the first round, all these different things. You've been around him. You've been around the family dating back to the Shrine Bowl. What are some of the things that are out there about Shedeur that are overblown or just false narratives that we don't know about the person and the player?
I think the biggest one that I maybe get sensitive to, because I've seen up close and personal, is how he'll be in the NFL, or what his attitude is, right? And there's often a catch-all with, when you talk about a guy's character, everyone just immediately defaults to, there's a problem, it's bad. And I think Shedeur is certainly different than most guys coming out of the draft because of his dad, but also because he's built 2 programs already. He's already had a lot of adversity to overcome. And I think he's talked to so many impressive NFL people. I mean, Tom Brady's a mentor and a friend of his, right? Like he's learned from so many great players, not to mention his dad across NFL history, that he's not disillusioned with what the NFL is going to be. And I think it's been frustrating to hear that, there's some anonymous reports, of course, about how it may be a problem in the NFL or leadership. And I think if you spend a day at Colorado's practice or talk to his teammates genuinely off the record, they will tell you how much of a leader he is, how he can shift from being leader mode at quarterback to friend, to ally, to resource. There's so many things that he's done in his college career and still does that you would never know about, no one ever tell you voluntarily, but shows what a great person he is. And that's what I think I get most sensitive to, because I got a chance to see, he's the East-West Shrine Bowl. He's asking me and my team on the side without anybody ever asking him, hey, can I learn more about the hospital, what the Shriners Hospital does? Because I want to use my platform to make sure I can do a press conference and bring that up as well, too. Like, that's the kind of person he is and how respectful he is, and using his immense platform. And I think the way he's able to navigate being probably the most famous draft prospect since Johnny Manziel or Tim Tebow, and still be a guy who feels that the same way he started the draft process, he's going to end the process, and being a humble, excited, confident leader of men as a quarterback prospect, I think is really impressive too. So I get sensitive to him being a negative character guy. I think it's complete opposite.
Now, you mentioned how the Browns and Giants had double-digit people there from the organization. I know the Browns had Jimmy Haslam, their owner, was there as well. The Giants, from what I've heard, had a presence at every Colorado Buffaloes game this past year, so they've seen him up and close throughout the year. I'm kind of curious to hear from you, with the draft in a little over 2 weeks. How do you foresee his draft night going? You've had people say 2 or 3. Some people say 2 and 3 pass. Some people have the Saints and number 9 as a team to watch. Like, what do you see this end up happening with him? Again, we're a little over 2 weeks. Things could change. It's fluid and everything. But right now, as we sit over here on April 7th, how do you see this all unfolding?
Yeah, based off of just, again, not trying to report anything, but based off of the interest and the consistent work the Browns and Giants have done, I don't think NFL teams think he's going to last very long, right? And I think there are teams that have done more homework recently in like March, April, just in case, which happens every year, right? The Bears did that with Justin Fields in case he fell, right, a couple of years ago, and they ended up taking him. So I think some teams like the Saints, or whether it's, the Steelers, other teams, maybe quarterbacks will do some homework here, but I think a lot of people believe that, hey, he might be going 2 or 3 to the Browns or Giants. It's hard to say. I would say that most people have, I think, left that pro day saying the Browns will probably go one of the 2 Colorado guys. The Giants and Browns, to that matter, certainly have sculpted their off seasons around drafting a quarterback early. That could still be a second round pick, but that early as well too. It's I've seen Malik Willis 4 years ago go from a first round pick to a third round pick, so I never like to be like confident where quarterbacks are going to go. But I'd be almost surprised if he's not a Brown or Giant by the end of Thursday night. And if that's not 2 or 3, maybe one of those teams sees him falling and makes a historic draft trade to get up there early as well too. But he's not going to fall out of the first round. He's probably not going to fall, if he ever did fall, past the first, half of the draft at worst. But I still believe that, hey, if the Browns and Giants really want to have a franchise quarterback and change, which I think both teams really need a reset of what their culture is. And there's actually no better player in this year's draft, and even the last couple of years' drafts, from a leadership personality standpoint, to kind of change her identity more than Shedeur Sanders. So I would say I still believe he's a Brown or Giant by the end of Thursday night.
One of the really cool things that happened on Friday, to me at least, was Travis Hunter was not planning to do anything. And then he was like, you know what? I'm going to run routes for my quarterback, my guy, my brother, and all that. What did you see out of Travis there, where he decided to run routes for Shedeur? And what does that also just say about the relationship that he has with Shedeur there?
Yeah, I unfortunately couldn't report that, but I did get tipped off the night before that he was going to run some routes with his guys as well too. And I think a couple things. One, I think it further shows the connectivity and genuine connectivity this Colorado team had. Coach Prime has done a fantastic job of really building. A lot of coaches say they want a family, but those Colorado guys are close. I mean, Jimmy Horn's running a 40, and he's going back to the 40-yard end marker to watch Will Shepherd. Like, those guys are tight as a group across, and that's led by Shedeur and Travis. I think Travis loves being a competitor. I think if Travis didn't have a lot of smart people around him, he might have done the whole draft process because he's a competitor, right? And thankfully for a guy like him, you shouldn't do too much to stay healthy and get ready for your NFL season. But I wasn't surprised at all. Travis and Shedeur are close. Travis and Jimmy Horn, Will Shepherd, LaJohntay Wester are close. Travis and all those guys played in the bowl game in December as well too. So that wasn't really a surprise for me. I think Travis First off, from a character standpoint, there has not been a team or a scout that has had anything but like overwhelming eyes popping out. What a great person he is. I got a chance to meet Travis and talk to Travis a couple times now. And, as clean cut of a non-quarterback prospect as I can remember. I've told people, I think I put it on social media, that I think he's as rare and generational as maybe Calvin Johnson, Myles Garrett, and Travis Hunter. Like that's the list of guys that have a 10.0 on our scale. And I think that's an on and off the field dynamic as well too. So Travis was always going to be, I think he should be still in consideration of the first overall pick, despite how talented Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders are. But I think it shows a lot about the culture of Colorado and kind of who Travis Hunter is and how close he and Shedeur are, that he wanted to still work out a pro day, even though he could do absolutely nothing and still be a top 2-3 pick in the draft.
Well, I think the latest that he goes in this draft is number 4. I think he could go as high as number 2. Just sticking with Travis, what do you see with him at the next level? People are debating corner, receiver, a mix. How do you see that all unfolding with him once he gets to the NFL? Is it just wherever he lands? Like, how do you see this all unfolding for him?
Yeah, I would say I expect him to be a top 3 pick in the draft. I think the Patriots would run the card up there if he was there for. I think he'll be a top 3 pick. And I think the answer is both. When you're talking about players like Calvin Johnson and Myles Garrett and now Travis Hunter, it's a little bit like Shohei Ohtani, where it's like you got to stop putting a ceiling on a guy who truly is rare, unique, one of a kind. And Travis Hunter really is. He might be the most unique player in a very long time because of how he can play corner and receiver. He can get better at both. Some of the route stuff can be cleaned up in the short area. Some of the through contact stuff at corner, adding some more weight. Of course, he can get better at both. But he is the best cornerback prospect in this draft, the best receiver prospect in this draft, and one of the best corner and receiver prospects the last 5-6 years at least. He's played both ways throughout his college career. Coach Prime talked to NFL scouts and coaches about kind of how they managed him in season. I had a chance to hear it. I won't share that necessarily. I want to keep that to the scouts confidentially, but it's nothing crazy. I mean, it's just like classic maze that he'll do in the NFL. I expect Travis to be this generational, incredibly unique, again, Shohei Ohtani level player where, yeah, he's going to play both ways. And every snap, probably not, hopefully not for his own well-being, but he'll play 30 snaps minimum both ways, whoever team drafts him too. And I think any team that kind of goes in with kind of a narrow view of him, you just can't kind of have a narrow view of a guy that's talented too. So whether it's Browns, Giants, or Patriots, all 3 of those teams could use another good corner and definitely had a good receiver for all those teams. I think Travis Hunter's played both those roles in the NFL, and I wouldn't categorize him as either one. I think he told the NFL, if that's not public yet, maybe it is, that he wants to be announced as a receiver and a corner and when he gets drafted. That's really, I think, a really important characteristic of kind of who he wants to be. I think who he'll be in the NFL.
There's been more and more public buzz out there that some teams would like to start him at corner. Am I overreading this a little bit that he did some receiver routes on Friday just to say like, hey, I want to do this also?
I think it's more about the connectivity of the program, but certainly that could be part of it because I think he's such a naturally gifted receiver. I mean, his ball skills are so impressive, which is why it translates both ways as well too. But again, there's some stuff to clean up at receiver, but it's as much as any other top 10, top 15 receiver as well too. I think he showed a bit at the pro day. Certainly they had 4 receivers going. So he wanted to give those guys more reps. I think he, honestly knows they needed a bit more too, but he can certainly hang at receiver in the NFL early on, and no doubt about that.
I do want to slide back here to the quarterbacks for a second because everyone is talking about Cam 1, Shedeur is the number 2 quarterback in this draft. How do you view this quarterback draft class after those 2 guys? Because after that, it feels like the NFL and scouts and mocks, it is all over the map. How do you see it?
Yeah, I've had a lot of discussions with people about this because I think, for a while, and I still believe this, that the idea of a day 2 quarterback doesn't really make sense, right? If you think a guy's a starting quarterback, you take him in round 1.
Round 1.
If he's not a starter, you shouldn't take any non-starters in the top 3 rounds, in theory. But I've kind of changed that this year because the idea that maybe a day 2 quarterback or a non-top quarterback should be a guy that would be a top quarterback if not for circumstance, right? And for Kyle McCord, hey, if he's at Ohio State this year and they don't kind of push him out the door and bring in Will Howard and they win a national championship, how early is Kyle McCord going, right? Probably top 5, 6, 7 picks in the draft. Tyler Shuck, incredible career, incredible talent, a lot of injuries, age, right? If not for those injuries and age, maybe he's a slam dunk first-round pick. Jackson Dart, probably consider staying in school this year if he wanted to, but it's a good opportunity for him to maybe a first-round pick or maybe an early second-round pick, but he's maybe a year too young, and if he stayed one more year, maybe he'd be a top 5, top 6 picks. Jalen Milroe, kind of same idea too. So I think all these guys are if not this, they'd be a slam dunk first round pick. And that's why I think hopefully these guys land in a better situation to kind of make up for that, right? I love to see, Tyler Shuck play right away and learn through things and have a good system that he can stay healthy and upright. I love to see, Jackson Dart sit for a year. So I think a lot of these guys have certain first round traits. All four guys I mentioned, I think, have clear first round traits. Even Quinn Ewers at Texas has some stuff where he's played a lot of big games and played through injury. I think for these guys, maybe more than ever, if they're going to go on day two, if they go in the right situation, that's a first round value for those teams, right? Anybody that the Rams draft is going to be in a great situation. If the Steelers take a guy they can develop for a year, that makes a lot of sense. So I think it's has the potential to be really strong. Obviously, these guys all won't land in ideal situations, but I think there'll be at least one quarterback outside those top two, if not two or three, end up starting and having a long NFL career if they land in the right situation. So I think it's a pretty good class overall. Certainly not as special as a year ago was.
Sitting here on April 7th as we record this, do you see a third quarterback sneaking into round one? And if so, who is that?
I do. I do see a quarterback sneaking into round one. I think the odds-on favorite, if you had to ask maybe Las Vegas, they'd say Jackson Dart. I think Dart and Shuck, I think either one of those, from what I've heard, could be that surprise one. I think it's more likely a team coming up from round two to round one to get him is more likely than a team in the back end of round one taking it. And I think part of that depends on Shedeur. Certainly, if Shedeur goes two to the Browns, maybe the Giants feel some pressure to move up or what have you. But I would say that three is probably what I would expect. I don't feel confident in that. I think we'll see probably two or three more go on day two. So 6 in total in the first 100, but I think 3 in the first round seems likely.
It's such an interesting conversation because I just go back to that, I believe it was 2021 draft where everyone was talking about, Pickett and Malik and Desmond Ridder, and there was the Sam Howell buzz. And of course, Pickett was the only one going in round one. The other guys didn't even go until rounds 3, 4, 5. And getting a read on this year's draft, is it like that draft or is it like last year's draft? Where Bo Nix was the sixth quarterback. We were talking about him going in the second round. Which
Yeah.
draft are we talking about this year? I guess we'll get more clarity as we get closer and closer. Eric, one of my favorite questions I love asking people who really know the draft inside and out, and I asked this to Charles Davis last week on the show as well, was who are some of the other guys in this draft who should be getting more buzz and attention, whether it's a Shrine Bowl guy, not a Shrine Bowl guy, whatever it is, but who are some of the guys who we're just not talking about? He's going to go higher than expected, and here it is right now.
Oh, a couple guys, and I can't help but go Shrine Bowl guys. Forgive me, it's not meant to be biased, but they're just my 130 favorite players in the draft. I mean, I'll mention Kyle McCord for one. I think Kyle, again, back in October when we finalized our board, our 4 quarterbacks that we had top of our board were Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders, Kyle McCord, and Tyler Shuck. So I've been a Kyle McCord fan for a while. I think he's going to land in a great situation. I'll say two more. One, Jordan Phillips, D tackle at Maryland, won our Pat Tillman Award, given out to the player with the highest character throughout the week. He's just 21 years old at Maryland, but you talk to him, he sounds like he's on a second contract in the NFL. I mean, really mature, great person, leader at Maryland. Again, at just 20 years old this past season, immensely talented, nose tackle, 3-tech. I think he'll be a second-round pick because of all the upside talent that's there. And so it's a great D tackle class, so maybe he gets overshadowed a little bit because of that. But Jordan Phillips, the guy that you want your team to know, because he's going to be a guy that'll be 23, 24 in a second contract, and a guy that'll be ascending throughout his NFL career. Chris Paul, linebacker at Ole Miss, goes by Poop Paul, had a great college career at Arkansas and Ole Miss. Smart, intelligent, rangy, some of the most impressive coverage film you'll see in this year's draft class. And again, a plug-and-play guy. Linebackers aren't really as sexy, but I think he jumps out. And then one guy I'm rooting for because I got a chance to know him a little bit, and he'll be a late-round pick and a non-combine guy, but Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, running back at technically Arizona, where he kind of finished his college career, but due to a mix-up on academic eligibility, he was ruled ineligible for his last season in Arizona. And I messaged him in September. I'm like, hey, man, I know who you are. I'm rooting for you. Here's, I think, a good plan for you. I believe in your talent. Why don't we try to get you in the Hula Bowl as soon as possible? And you play the Hula Bowl and you take care of business there. We'll invite you to the Shrine Bowl and you'll be an NFL draft pick. And I'm very thankful that he and I got pretty close. And that's exactly the plan that he followed. Great Hula Bowl week. Awesome Shrine Bowl week as well. And he's got some Tyrone Tracy buzz right now where it's like, hey, he's everyone's favorite sleeper. Maybe he goes 4th, 5th round, but he may be a starter by the end of his rookie season too. So those are 3 guys at the top of my head. And forgive me, all the rest of the Shrine Bowl guys who I didn't say too. I love you guys still the same way too. But those are 3 guys that jump out.
Well, we'll definitely be rooting for him. But Jordan Phillips, by the way, I mean, Dane Brugler has been talking about him nonstop as one of his favorite up and coming guys here in this draft. So I'm happy you mentioned him here as well. Last year at the Shrine Bowl, I believe it was 57 players were drafted in the draft, an all-time high for the Shrine Bowl. What are we expecting here this year for the 2025 NFL draft?
Yeah, hopefully more. Think we're on track to be significantly more, if not much more. But you never know on draft weekend. Last year, I remember 2 years ago we were doing okay, and then 15 of the last 20 draft picks in the seventh round were all Shrine Bowl guys, and that made it up for maybe a downside year or two. So you never really know what's going to happen. Certainly last year, smaller draft class, right? A lot of guys stayed in school. A transfer portal was considered a shallower class, and that led to a lot more sustainability there too. But I think we had a lot of great players. We had a lot of players that chose the Shrine Bowl over other All-Star events. Guys like Shedeur Sanders being one of those guys, Kyle McCord as well, Poop Ball, Jordan Phillips, all those guys kind of chose the Shrine Bowl other events. And then I think credit to our scouting staff, we've done a better and better job each and every year of being more efficient, of getting the right guys in there. So we're certainly hoping. I'm going to be pessimistic this time of year, man. I'm going to hope for just 60 plus would be great. And guys like Shedeur and Kyle, and I think 2, maybe 3 more quarterbacks drafted as well would be a huge step in the right direction. And, I took over 4 years ago, and we're trying to push it. And I was hired to kind of make it the premier all-star event. I think we're on track to do that. In this year's draft class, having 60 plus would be a huge part of that.
Well, the Shrine Bowl is the longest running All-Star game. And like you said, it's been growing significantly here over the last couple of years. You've been running it the last 4 years. I mentioned in the beginning how you just got an extension to continue doing the great work. I do want to talk just about you and getting there and all the progress that the game and the event has had. How did you get to this position? How did that come about for you? I know you were with some other All-Star games, you were a scout and you were for a brief period with the Vikings. That isn't like where did all this come for
Yeah.
you where you ended up in this position?
Yeah, I started consulting with agencies and CFL teams when I was 15 years old. They might have thought I was 25 at the time. Might have fit my age a little bit, but consulted back then. It really always took the approach of trying to be really actionable and tangible in scouting, right? Not just post my thoughts on. Even at the time, Twitter was still in the early stages, as old as that makes me sound. And it was more so for me being like, hey, I don't want to just talk into the void. I want to actually do something in the space, and where can I do something? And it was agents and CFL teams being more efficient. And I've kind of always been at consulting. How can I help people be more efficient? I've also loved building things in my career, whether it's working with smaller agencies and helping them become bigger, smaller all-star games, helping them grow, CFL teams try to be more effective. And then probably one of the bigger capstones working with other all-star games, other events, was really the XFL. And I'm very thankful for Oliver Luck and at the time, Sam Schwartzstein, his right-hand man back in 2018, to really select me to be in charge of all player personnel over a lot of really great other candidates that had a lot more experience. And it chose me part because I think of my law degree. Went to Villanova Law School, so that kind of comes in handy when kind of being a startup football league. I was young and willing to do whatever it took, right? I was doing stadium visits. I was doing all these things besides personnel. But I think what benefited me is I had a pretty strong network of people in the NFL, but especially agents, and then try to have a really creative approach to how we want to build something. And for us, it was, all right, we got to focus on quarterbacks and offensive linemen. How do we sign these guys? What's our contract structure? All these unique things as well. It allowed me to kind of really see a way to reimagine football, to steal a quote we have from the XFL, and be really thoughtful in everything we were doing. A lot of my career has been, I've had a lot of well-rounded experience, whether it's law background or working with small events or whatever it may be. But being really focused on, all right, forget what the norms are. How can we do this different? And that experience has treated me well, even after the XFL ended in 2020. Me and Oliver Luck had been talking with other people in conference about how to play during COVID. And I actually got introduced to Bob Roller at the Shriners Hospital and talking about playing in COVID and whatever that may be. And he kind of said, hey, would you be interested in taking charge? And here's what we want to make the Shrine Bowl in the future. And I got a chance to talk to him more and talk to the board. And it was a great alignment of interest and alignment of their ambition and what they want the Shrine Bowl to be, and hopefully what I can bring to the table too. And over the last 4 years, it's been awesome. We've gone from 29 draft picks the year I took over. It's just 3 years later, 57 draft picks, almost 100% increase, but also a lot more awareness for the hospital, increase in kind of social media reach and awareness, trust and belief in the players, NFL teams, know our process is good. Beyond just draft picks, there's a lot of metric we use. And I'm very proud of the fact that all of my experience, plus the great team we have at Shriners Children's, has led to the Shrine Bowl being successful so far, and a lot more room to grow.
You mentioned just how it has evolved since you got there. I mean, there has been this push for the Shrine Bowl over the last couple of years, really since you got there. It has grown so much. What do you credit most of that growth? Like would you say that came from, where now every single year as you get into draft season, we're talking Shrine Bowl, Shrine Bowl, Shrine. Like, where did that come from? You feel like, where was the evolvement of that?
Yeah, it really was trying to. I mean, my first 2 months, and this is something I took from again Oliver Luck and Sam Schwartzman. The first 2 3 months was like, don't do anything. I'll also credit Ron Wolf's book, which I think everyone should read. One Again Football. I forget the name of it. Sorry, but back in the '90s. But just took 2 months and talked to people and thought about things like, hey, what's the All-Star game like? Talked to Phil Savage, former director of the Senior Bowl. Talked to people in the NFL and agents, and not like stole their views because I want to kind of get it, but they may have different views than I did. But what did they learn and what could they do? And some of the big ones were, hey, we've got to be more active on social media. That's an obvious one. But also, hey, no All-Star games are at NFL facilities. How about that? How about that as an opportunity? Hey, what's going to be the hook for players? There's a lot of formulaic, hey, players do this and then this and this. How do we jolt that in a way that makes the Shrine Bowl not just an All-Star game of practices, but something different? What really matters for player success, which I deem to be player health and sleep and rest recovery? What matters for NFL teams? A consistent schedule, not up late at night. So all these things we took about 2 3 months, and that was really the focus. And then finalizing that, putting that in a way that made sense, building some buzz, moving into Las Vegas, but then just telling people and agents and colleges and NFL teams, calling them saying, hey, I want to bother you, but I want to make sure this is different. And that stuff takes a year or two. But I think the biggest that was the year one plan. But the reason I think we've really grown, I'm very proud of the fact that our players tell other players. And I love the fact I'm going to miss that whenever I leave this job of not being close to players. I got that extension announced. And again, I mentioned earlier, Tyrone Tracy shoots me a text. Congratulations, my guy. Like, he's doing a million things. And having a guy like him still reach out. Zay Flowers will FaceTime me, checking in and tell me I got to invite his guys from Miami, whatever it may be, right? So it's great to have that camaraderie. But these guys, I think, saw the Shrine Bowl as a real great part of their NFL draft journey. They want to kind of pay it forward and tell their teammates. So a lot of our success year over year is sometimes agents, sometimes colleges, but oftentimes it's for players that played in the Shrine Bowl to tell their teammates, hey, trust Eric, go to the Shrine Bowl. It's a great event, a great opportunity too. And that's been a big reason why we've grown year over year by between 10 and 25% in draft picks every year.
Well, you mentioned the players and how obviously they're very vital to all of this. How do you and your team, your staff, go about just selecting the players for the Shrine Bowl? Like, what qualities or traits do you prioritize? What is the process, the scouting? Like, what is the year-round process to eventually getting to January and the entire event?
Yeah, a lot of people think you just call up NFL teams and you get the answers. And sometimes you can. I mean, hey, I think if that's the way you want to go about it, you can do that. But the biggest difference that I think I learned right away and take a lot of pride in is that we make decisions. I mentioned we invited our quarterbacks, our top 4 quarterbacks in mid-October. Like, we got to be mostly done by mid-October, right? NFL teams still have 3 more weeks until they have to be done, right? So we're forced to be really proactive and aggressive. And it's my job and our team's job, or really my job, to talk to NFL people, to talk to colleges and get information, but not seek answers, right? Hey, let me talk about these guys. What do you think of them? What do you like about him? Forget me your draft grade. What do you like about him? And allow our team to kind of get the right answers too. And, a big part of our first invites are guys that we are very, very, very confident are draft picks based off of our evaluation as well as NFL teams. And then as we get closer to the event, we rely more and more on our teams. And I remember, this is probably 3 years ago now, 2 years ago now, whenever it was, we liked a guy, a D tackle, an FCS transfer to an FBS school, and we liked him a lot. And we had a top 100 grade at him, and like only one team kind of liked him. No one else did. Asked the NFL, no one liked him. And then by late November, I'm like, screw it. I don't care what they say. We're right on this guy. And I'll give our credit to our staff as well, too. And then Kobe Turner comes to the Shrine Bowl, has a great week of practice, still not a combine guy. NFL teams didn't wake up then. And now he's going to be, an all-pro D tackle for the Los Angeles Rams. So it's a mix of working with NFL teams and colleges for sure. But at the end of the day, it's on myself and our staff to evaluate these guys successfully too. And I'm very thankful that, over my time at the XFL, really last, 6-7 years now from XFL to now, we've had about 20-25 personnel on our staff go on to either major college jobs or NFL scouting jobs, which I think is a testament to how kind of our process of developing scouts and having them grow as evaluators and know what to look for, know how to use resources, has allowed them to have success as well too. And I'm as proud of those guys as I am our draft picks, because I know how hard it is to get in the NFL as a scouting assistant or whatever. And I think that's a big reason why we've had a lot of scouting success. We're laser focused on developing great talent as scouts as well as finding players.
Well, that's the thing about the Shrine Bowl and really all these All-Star games, where the fans and really media also, we don't realize the work that goes on year round to find the guys who end up attending these all-star games. Like there is a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes over the last several months before the event gets underway in order to make it happen. You mentioned Kobe Turner, former spotlight guest here on the show, so underrated,
Nice.
so good. So it's pretty cool to hear how it all started for him as well, with the Shrine Bowl and your staff eventually getting him in and the Rams taking him there in the third round. What has been like your proudest moment as the director of the Shrine Bowl so far? Like, is there a moment in particular you're like, okay, that is pretty cool. I'm really proud about that moment.
Yeah, a lot. I mean, I think that draft weekend is always great. Sometimes it's scary and sad for some guys, but knowing, intimately what guys are going through, what they have to overcome. And sometimes, Mason McCormick and I, we met each other in July before his senior season at South Dakota State. And we got close ever since then. He's an awesome dude, like to hang out with and BS with. And kind of being with him his whole journey, watching him crush the draft process, having him go fourth round, FaceTiming him afterwards. I mean, stuff like that gets me excited. I would say for one, I'm really thankful and proud of guys like Zay Flowers, who came to the Shrine Bowl, did his homework. He was the first kind of big guy that chose the Shrine Bowl of other All-Star events. But just the attachment he felt to not just me, but our team and the Shriners Hospital. And if you go back, he did so much. He was at the draft that year, and we had Alec from the Shriners Children's Hospital do content with him, and he spent 45 minutes with Alec on the red carpet talking about the hospital, just being engaging. And the fact that I think he was a guy that, because of his presence, was able to show that, hey, this event, I have an attachment to it. I'm proud of this. I'm a part of this history. And I think that's something I look for a lot of guys as well, too. And it's great to me because I think myself and our team really showed Zay the value of the game, to what the hospital is all about. So I think I'm most proud of that from an optic standpoint, too. But no, I'm certainly proud of the fact that we've had a lot of great players come through, and our staff's done a great job. One of the unique benefits that I'll always take from this job now is talking to these players and just getting 500 players a year of reps of learning how these guys tick and what aspects of their background work. A lot of these guys, when they first talk to NFL GMs or scouts, it may not be till the All-Star game, but I've talked with these guys off the record transparently for months leading up there too. And I think, talking to every quarterback the last 4 draft classes and knowing how they tick, and then the benefit of seeing what works and what doesn't. Hey, why did Brock Purdy work? I can go back to my notes and my remembering in our conversations and be like, yeah, now I will never miss that again too. So talking to these guys intimately is something that I think I'm thankful for. And I think whatever my next job is going to be after this, maybe that's in 5 years, 10 years, whenever it's going to be after the Shrine Bowl. I think that intuition and instinct is going to really help any evaluator know how to evaluate these players off the field better too. That's a huge benefit of the game.
You mentioned the next job potentially. You just got that extension. You're going to be there,
Yeah.
but you've had those opportunities to leave. People see the success and the growth, and they're like, "Oh, we want Eric." What keeps you committed to the Shrine Bowl? And like, but just think 5, 10 years from now, like, what are some of the goals that you do have eventually, whenever it is post Shrine Bowl?
No, I love the Shrine Bowl, man. I thankfully had some opportunities to go elsewhere in this small All-Star game industry. But I think the fact that if our team does a good job, if I do a good job, we're raising more awareness and opportunity for the Shriners Children's Hospital is a great reason to wake up and be motivated every day. I think also, I talking with the Bob Roller and the Shriners Hospital, 4 years ago now, and figuring out what the goal is. And we haven't quite achieved that goal yet. And I think I don't want to leave that. I joke with, again, Sam, I'll keep name dropping. I'm sorry, Sam Schwartzstein, but at
Former
the
guest,
XFL.
former
Okay,
guest
good.
on the show, by
All
the way.
right.
There we go.
Friend of the show.
Friend of the show.
So I would joke with Sam is that, we think we did so many cool things to the XFL, and then COVID allowed us not to kind of finish our goals. And I feel that the Shrine Bowl is really a chance for me to kind of have a goal, have a mindset, take an approach and finish that. So I won't really be dying to go anywhere until we've kind of finished that goal at the very least too. But it's great. I get a chance to work with great people at the Shriners Hospital. I get to develop a lot of great scouts and staff, and talk to a lot of people in college and the NFL. I joke the other day I've had, one 3 missed calls in a row was Kirby Smart, a really high profile agent. And then an NFL executive, right? And 1, 2, 3. And I'm like, what other job in football has these people calling me? It's not like it's a humble brag. It's more like this job is really at the center of a lot of stuff. And you get to talk to a lot of great people and learn a whole bunch and see how people operate. So I'm in no rush to leave that as well, too. I'm very thankful. I'm thankfully still young in the business. Well, kind of young, 33. I guess James Gladstone kind of ruined young for a lot of people in their 30s now, being a GM in Jacksonville. But I've got some time, and I want to make sure I achieve the goals here at the Shriners Hospital. What the future may hold, I'm not sure. The college football landscape's changing, NFL landscape's changing too, and I think I'll probably just be here at the Shrine Bowl and take care of business first and kind of see what comes in the future too. But I've always been a kind of be where you're at kind of guy. I love being here.
Well, we're excited to watch and see how it continues to evolve and the amazing job that you do. I put you in the spot over here before I give you the final question to ask every guest. You have a bit of a pulse on the league, every team, all 32 teams. Is there one team in particular, just talking to whether the front office, the coaching staff, or whatever, that you're like, I like the direction that they're going in, and like give them a couple years, they're going to be in a really good spot?
It's a good question. Well, I guess I'll answer that in two ways. One, I have a lot of respect, and we've emulated a lot of what Leslie and the Rams have done in our scouting process. Just how they operate their scouts, from the national scouts, kind of the area scouts, and what their focus is. And I greatly appreciate a guy like Les, who's got a more traditional background that what people think of from scout to GM, but he's so open-minded and so curious and looking to add analytics, or I have a director of scouting strategy on his staff and work with coaches. I think all the stuff he does is, I think, really impressive for someone that you wouldn't think, because of his background, wouldn't think this guy could be open-minded, and he's incredibly open-minded too. I think Les is someone I have a ton of respect for. And I'll tie that to the Jaguars and James Gladstone. And I think there's a lot of template how to build a front office or how to do things in the NFL. And a lot of NFL ownership will just get the guy who came from a place that had a pretty good template and hope it works. And I think the Jaguars have a chance with James Gladstone to really kind of rethink, hey, what matters every step of the process? What matters in a scouting assistant and an area scout? Why are we doing this? How do we integrate analytics? And I think one thing I've got a chance to talk with James Gladstone only briefly, we're not friends or anything, but talk to him enough to know that he's very thoughtful about those things and the interconnectivity, right? For example, I think a lot of NFL teams have an analytics department, and a lot of those are just down the hall and we'll call you if we need you, right? It's not really integrated. Where you talk to a finance person, that's the obvious thing, right? So I think hopefully a guy like James Gladstone, who's young, smart, creative, been around great mentors like Les Snead, he could be one of the early GMs to kind of really figure out how to tie it all together too. And I'd be bullish on the Jaguars of the future too. He's going to have to take some time, and it won't happen overnight. But I know how impressive he is from my talk to him. I know how impressive he is from people in the NFL who work with them, and certainly Les Snead vouch for him as well too. And the Khan family is going to give them a lot of leeway to be successful too. And I'd be bullish on the Jaguars. I think 4 or 5 years from now, they could be one of the teams that every other team is trying to emulate and change, as the NFL process really does.
One thing about the Rams that I don't think fans really realize is just how they've been at the forefront of so many new things, like you said. And it's less. Brad Holmes was there, Gladstone was there. I mean, Tony Pasteur's, like the entire organization, Sean McVay, of course, but they have been trying to find new ideas that nobody else has and implement it. And Jordan Rodrigo, the Athletic, has done a great job of letting us know what it is and writing about it. But people who don't know, I mean, they've been on top of it. I think James Gladstone will bring that to Jacksonville, and I really do love that pick for them. And of course, they're picking number 5 here in this draft. Everyone talks about the top 4. They're right there as well. So we'll see what they do there at number 5. All right. Last question here. I asked this to every Spotlight guest. Eric, this is the NFL Spotlight Show. We love spotlighting people in the NFL who deserve more recognition. Player, coach, executive, somebody outside the box. You could pick more than one if you want. Who is somebody who should be in the seat here in the future?
One guy I got to know, and I got a chance to work with him back in 2016, 2017, Gerard Johnson, currently the QB coach of the Houston Texans. But one of just talking to him, you're like, this guy needs to be a head coach tomorrow in the NFL. I mean, just the thoughtfulness about how to build a team, a culture. It's the only guy that's played, and he's got kind of that great experience of a player who you play his career differently, and that guy is a superstar. But he's got so much life experience and gone through adversity. And then he was a private coach. We got a chance to work with these guys when they were 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 years old. Now he's in the NFL coaching as well too. And I think if he was a private coach, he'd be, one of the best private coaches out there too, but he really wants to coach in the NFL. He loves that aspect of it too. And I think he is a slam dunk future head coach. I think it'd be great to hear from you and get some stuff out of you as well when you interview him. But he jumps out as the one. A couple other guys I can mention. I can leave some people out in the scouting side. Cam Williams in New England, their director of college scouting, is a great future guest. Hopefully you can have him on as well too. He's a rising star as well and a good friend of mine. But I'll leave with Gerard Johnson because I think, I will confidently say that he'll be a head coach the next 2-3 years. And when he is, I have a hard time thinking he won't have more success than a different mindset, but a very similar, like, people are going to trust him and respect him the way they trust Dan Campbell. I think he's that kind of coaching candidate, and I hope he gets a chance to be a head coach here in the next couple of years because he's going to crush it.
Rod has had a number of OC interviews over the last couple of years, a very close bond to CJ Stroud and the early success that he had there in Houston. We're going to work on it. I would love to get him on. I've heard his name a number of times over the last couple of years. You mentioning it as well only validates it here as well. But Eric, I want to thank you for coming on the show here this week, being our spotlight guest of the week, talking about everything you saw at Colorado, the Shrine Bowl, the success, how it's evolved, how it's become one of the premier all-star games and how it continues to grow and grow. You've done an outstanding job, you and your staff. Congrats on the well-deserved extension and continued success.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it, man.
Special thanks to Eric Galko for joining us on the show here this week. Again, I mean, just look back at everything that he has done, starting really young and working his way up this ladder, never giving up and really making calls and finding his way into it and eventually becoming the director of the Shrine Bowl, which is the longest running all-star game of all of them. And it has really gone on the map over here over the last 4 or 5 years since he took it over, evolving the game and doing many different things. And now he has extended to stay there. But that is a game that most executives, most scouts, all of them go there early January to go check it out. And they've been getting some high profile prospects to start coming every single year. Eric is a big part of that. And he truly knows the draft inside and out, like you saw here in the discussion. And his career is a really impressive one as he continues to go further and further. He's going to be a name that I think most fans are going to get to know here over the years as we keep it going. All right, let's wrap it up here on this Tuesday. Let me bring in my good friend, Ben Allen. Ben, what is going on? Great discussion there with Eric. How are we wrapping up here on this Tuesday?
Yeah, Ari, it was great. I've been following the game for years, but this was the first time I've really gotten to hear him extensively talk about it beyond just like a 5 minute hit there. So really impressive stuff. Let's go ahead and talk a little bit more draft though, because obviously the drafts, they come and go, but every single year the quarterbacks are usually the biggest discussion point. And this year really seems to be no different with Cam Ward, assumedly going as the number one pick in the draft. Shedeur Sanders, as we discussed with Eric, could fall into a wide range of places. And now we've seen Jackson Dart kind of enter that first round discussion, but is far from a lock to be there going in the first round. Well, we got a fourth guy we got to pay attention to now because the NFL draft has officially invited Jalen Milroe to the green room, which is not something that we see handed out like candy, particularly when we've seen quarterbacks that are a little bit more fringe first round guys, I think is probably a nice way of putting it. There's not a guarantee that we see him go early in the draft. I wouldn't even say it's necessarily a lock that we see him go in round 2. So are you surprised to see that Milroe is going to be headed out there? And what do you think of the potential, not consequences, but the ripple effect from him choosing to do this?
You know, Ben, this is really interesting because, first of all, this has not been officially announced yet, but Dane Brugler, who is one of the best at what he does, reported this. And it's interesting because over the last couple of years, the NFL has done something where we know during the early 2000s, we would watch, Brady Quinn falling and Aaron Rodgers falling, and the cameras keep on panning, and it's awkward and it's weird and it's great drama for the fans, but for the young player who is, in his early 20s, it's kind of embarrassing. And this is, it's just not cool. So the NFL over the last couple of years, they've kind of made it known that we don't want that to happen to these young guys entering the NFL. And we are not going to pan the camera to the guy every single second over here if he's dropping. And B, moving forward, when it comes to inviting prospects, we're going to try our best to invite prospects only who we really believe are going to go in the first round. So this report of Jalen Milroe getting the invite and accepting is really fascinating to me. And again, they're going to make it official here in the coming days and weeks whenever they announce the full list. But I think back to some of the quarterbacks who have gotten invites over the last couple of years. It does not mean you're for sure going in the first round. I've seen that theory thrown around on Twitter, but look at a couple of years ago, Malik Willis was invited, did not go in the first round, did not even go in the second round. Will Levis a couple of years ago, a lot of talk about him going in the top 5. He falls completely out of round 1. The camera actually went to him a lot throughout the course of that night. but he did not go in the first round. I remember Matt Corral, who also went in the third round back in 2021. He was there in the green room that night, did not get drafted in the first or second round. So it would not be the first time ever where these guys, Geno Smith back in the day also came for the first night, did not get drafted, actually returned for the second night, eventually got drafted by the Jets. Point being, you getting invited does not mean you're for sure going to go in the first round. I'm just surprised that the NFL has even gone this far to invite him. And I mentioned this last week with Charles Davis here on the show. You know, we've had a lot of discussions about this quarterback draft and who's going to go where. We all believe Cam Ward is going one. There's obviously that big discussion with Shedeur Sanders. We just had it now with Eric Galko. Who is that QB3? Is it Jackson Dart? Is it somebody else? The thing that I've noticed, and I think, you know, people around the NFL have told me as well, and again, I told this to Charles last week, the actions by the teams around the NFL who are quarterback needy are telling us they don't love this quarterback draft class. I mean, I look at what, for example, you look at the Giants and they're signing Jameis and Russell Wilson. You look at the Raiders trading for Geno Smith. You look at the Jets signing Justin Fields. You look at the Saints. They could have moved on from Derek Carr. They kept him and restructured his contract. You look at, you know, the Rams and the entire saga with Matthew Stafford eventually getting him back. And there are other examples as well. Like all these teams who could have been in the quarterback market and drafting somebody high, they kind of went the veteran route. And that's why it's a little bit confusing to me to figure out where are all these other quarterbacks after Cam Ward going to go? Where is Shedeur Sanders going to go? Is Jackson Dart actually a round one guy? Jalen Milroe, Kyle McCord, Will Howard, Quinn Ewers, like all these guys, I don't really have an exact, idea of where they're going to go. Is round one actually realistic? Or is this like the 2021 NFL draft? If everyone recalls, we were talking about Kenny Pickett going at number 6 to Carolina. We were talking about Malik Willis going as high as number 2 to Detroit. There was talk about Desmond Ridder going in the first round, Sam Howell going in the first round, and all those guys went, you know, aside from Kenny Pickett who went 20, all those guys went third round or later, not even the first round or the second round. So, or is this like last year's draft where we were talking about the top 3 quarterbacks being, you know, Caleb, Jaden, and Drake May, and then there's the other guys in JJ who we knew would go in the first round, but there were question marks with Michael Penix and Bo Nix. Some people were like, first round buzz, that's so overblown, that's agent talk, that's whatever. And of course, all 6 quarterbacks go in the top 12. Which draft are we talking about? Is it 2021 or is it like the 2024 quarterback? So the actions of all the teams in the NFL makes me feel like it's the 2021 version over here. But I don't know. This entire Jalen Milroe getting invited to the draft and accepting it, knowing the fact that the NFL is trying really hard not to invite guys who will not go in the first round, it's super interesting to me. But if you ask me right now, I believe we get 2 first round quarterbacks for sure. Outside chance of 3, but I would put it a little over 50% that we get that third one. And after that, I think everyone else is second round, third round, fourth round in this draft. At least that's the way executives around the NFL who do not need quarterbacks in this draft view this quarterback draft class.
That is all I've got for you here today, Mr. Ari Meirov. Make sure you guys are subscribed on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, Amazon Music, other platforms I've probably never heard of, but for some reason we get aggregated to. Just make sure you're doing it there. But also make sure you're checking out our shorts that we're pumping out. If you want a little bit of ahead content, can't wait till the Monday morning episode, can't wait till the Tuesday morning episode, any of that stuff. We get some of that information out there early on YouTube with the shorts. Make sure you're following along there. And that's all I got for you, Ari.
Yep, that will do it here for our Tuesday, April 8 edition of the NFL Spotlight Show. Thanks again to Eric Galko for joining us here this week. We will be back here tomorrow morning with a lot more NFL talk, NFL draft talk, and much more. We will see you all here tomorrow morning.